Just 53 members of the roster for this one. Of course, they'll have practice squad players the next time they practice. Previously, it was the training camp and preseason roster, so just 53 for the Texans. Some interesting observations from the action in that practice. One of the players who was a surprise 53 roster member had a really standout performance. No Noah was not easy for Nick Caserio to talk about, and what exactly is British Brooks doing on this roster? Let's start with those practice observations. This is one of the final practices that the media will be allowed to watch the practice in its entirety. And with just 53 players, you saw a lot of ones versus ones in this matchup. And my goodness, was CJ Stroud surgical in the start to this? A lot of quick stuff, a lot of easy action for CJ Stroud and his wide receivers. I really like how he works the middle of the field, especially one that he worked to Brevin Jordan. Jordan had to go up and rip that thing out of the air, and Brevin Jordan looks like he is quick and ready to contribute from that tight end room. That's going to be a really fun tight end room for the Texans because Dalton Schultz, he made a nice play in practice. Jimmy Ward was right there with him. Schultz had a step. He kind of turned around to kind of catch the ball from CJ Stroud. He sort of plucked it off of Jimmy Ward's head and took it down the field, down the middle of the field. Those tight ends are so dangerous in the middle of the field. We talked about Schultz and Brevin Jordan, but Cade Stover's going to be on the field a couple of times as well with Dalton Schultz. Some of those two tight end, more blocking-centric setups for those tight ends. But that was something that jumped off the page to me right away, is that middle of the field for those tight ends, because defenses have to account for Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Stefon Diggs and the success that those guys can have over there on the outside. And speaking of the outside, man, that working outside stuff to the sideline, CJ Stroud is so good at making those throws. He hit Brevin Jordan on one, as I mentioned, and he threw a beauty of a pass to John Mechie. Mechie ran a perfect route, broke free from Kamari Lassiter, got to the sideline. The pass is perfect, right over Lassiter, right into the breadbasket of Mechie. And then he dropped it, but it was, a learning rep, okay? He dropped the really beautiful pass after the really beautiful route to beat the well-defended play from the cornerback. But, he can learn from it. Maybe he's not going to drop it the next time on that one. And CJ Stroud had one moment that I'm sure he would like back. Things got a little messy in the pocket. He tried to make something happen a little bit further down the field, and that pass didn't quite make it out there. And Azeez Al-Shire was able to intercept the pass, but Stroud was right back at it with some of that quick action to get back on track, to get the train on time, so to speak. You hear that sometimes as a cliche for offenses. Stroud got the train back on time. The train was running smooth after that. Pretty darn good practice from the offense. The defense had a couple of moments on Derek Barnett and Derek Barnett and Henry To'o. There we go. Without looking at my notes, I remembered it. Fly in there for what would have been a sack as well. So a pretty nice practice, pretty crisp, but not the most intense practice. I mean, they're not in pads, so ones on ones, and then the action that you did see in that practice, it's not super intense work from anybody because you're not in pads. They've got a few days off now before they get back on the field, start getting ready for the Colts. A lot of game plan type stuff to get ready for the Colts, walk through speed in a portion of this practice as well. And if you were wondering, hey, Cody, what is Dameon Pierce doing on this team? Are they just keeping him in bubble wrap because they're trying to trade him? No, they're not. 31 was carrying the football. And if they had to play a game tomorrow, I wouldn't be surprised to see Dameon Pierce be the guy that backs up Joe Mixon and his running back number 2 based on the way that they operated in practice. Now, obviously, you just hope Joe Mixon never needs to come off the field. Pretty much what he did in Cincinnati last year, just 61 carries by non-Joe Mixon running backs in Cincinnati last year. And Mixon has been in the top 5 of carries 3 times in the past 5 seasons. So you hope that the bell cow, Joe Mixon, who had a nice run today in practice, you hope the bell cow just takes care of his business. So you don't have to worry about who Dameon Pierce is backing up, or if Dameon Pierce is backing up Joe Mixon, or if Cam Akers is ahead of Dameon Pierce, or what does Dare Ogunbowale do on this roster? Catch the ball pretty well, actually, is what Dare Ogunbowale does. Speaking of catching the ball, the Texans have 7 wide receivers on their 53-man roster. And one of the surprises at that spot was Steven Sims, the return specialist and receiver for this team. Sims had one of the plays of the day. CJ Stroud saw him over on the right side of the field. He ran a beautiful corner route to beat his man, and Stroud dropped it right in the bucket for what was at least a 25-yard, maybe a 30-yard touchdown pass to Sims. And then Sims is going to factor heavily in to the return game as well. I would think that your three options that the Texans can choose from at punt returns are Robert Woods, who's also a surprise keep in the wide receiver room, Steven Sims, and Tank Dell. I don't know that Dell's going to do it all the time. I feel like that's why Sims is here, to do it most of the time, and maybe you sprinkle in some Tank Dell. And then I would tell you that Sims is going to be absolutely one of those guys that's out there for kickoff returns as long as he remains on the roster, which goes to, when you kind of look at the roster, you see 7 wide receivers. If you take Steven Sims' name and dump it over to special teams and he becomes a specialist along with Kaimi Fairbairn, John Weeks, and Tommy Townsend, if you think of Sims as a specialist, as a fourth specialist for this team, it becomes a little bit easier to understand the roster. But Sims, really nice play, catching the football. They didn't do any sort of big returns. It was just kind of security practice for the returns, and he was pretty secure with the football. So there's likely your return man for this Texans team while he remains on the roster. A moment here for my friends at Prize Picks. Daily fantasy sports made easy at Prize Picks. You're just predicting more or less on given stats. You put them together in an entry, and if you get them correct, you win. You don't even have to get them all correct with the flex entries that my friends at Prize Picks put together. It's so easy, and you're going to play your first 5 and get $50 in bonus when you use my code STOOTS, STOOTS, at the link in description down below. Check that out. Enter the code when you get signed up for the first time. Play that first 5, and they're going to send you 50 to play with as well. I like the season-long NFL. Now, you can already get in on week 1, and sometimes they got little fun specials like more than 0.5 passing yards from Caleb Williams. That would be fun. You can already get in on week 1, 267.5 from CJ Stroud. That feels like an easy more. But I like the season-long ones. You go over here, NFL SZN for the season, and you've got passing yards. You've got interceptions. You've got interceptions from defenders. You've got receptions. You've got so many different options, so many different things that you can put together in your Prize Picks entry. And man, it is so much fun, so easy to make daily fantasy fantastic. And that's season-long fantasy with the best in daily fantasy, and that's Prize Picks. Baseball, basketball, and certainly with football season here. So many different options. Get your offer, the link in the description down below, and use my code STOOTS, STOOTS, when you get signed up, and have some fun with Prize Picks and do more on Stefon Diggs touchdowns. That's my favorite one on the NFL season long. Hit that one in there. Get it in there. Sign up. Link description down below. Sims, and I mentioned Woods, a little bit of a surprise to make the roster. Noah Brown not making the roster. Already has a new team headed to the Commanders, and that's exactly what Nick Caserio said when I asked him about Noah Brown. And, hey, did the injuries finally catch up to the veteran wide receiver?
Yeah, I mean, Noah's a good football player. I mean, Noah's going to be on a team. There's no question about it. He helped us win, honestly, probably 2 games last year by himself. So, I mean, good football player. We understood going into this, as we constructed the team, Cody, that, we weren't going to be able to keep everybody, right? So, got to make some hard decisions. I'd say that was a difficult decision. So, we kept the players that we felt right now that could help us the most. I mean, I'd say Noah, certainly part of that discussion. In the end, we just made the decision to move on. But I have a lot of respect for Noah. He's probably one of the toughest players that we had on this football team. Took advantage of opportunities last year. And, again, he won us 2 football games literally by himself, the Cincinnati game, the Tampa Bay game. I don't know, he had 1,000 yards receiving in 2 games, whatever it was. But good football player. He's going to be on a team fairly soon and probably going to help a team win. So, those are the players that, you wish them well. Just can't keep everybody, but certainly wish him well and, have a lot of respect for Noah.
A really nice comment there from Nick Caserio on Noah Brown. He doesn't often go out of his way to praise players like that. He's very quick to tell you football's a team game. So when he praises Noah Brown for single-handedly winning a couple of games, that is really big praise from Nick Caserio. And Brown was fantastic last year. The Cincinnati game and the Tampa game, it wasn't over 1,000 yards. It was 325 yards, I think, to be exact, on that one, a touchdown in that contest. He also was really good in Tennessee as well against the Tennessee Titans. So that's another game the Texans probably don't win if they didn't have Noah Brown last year, but he's not available to them because of the injuries. He doesn't have the chance to show off what he can do. Woods does, Hutchinson does, Mechie does, Sims does, and those guys make the roster over Noah Brown. But and you could tell it was not an easy cut to get rid of Noah Brown, and there was certainly some hopes that he could recapture some of that magic that he had in the handful of performances from last year, but that magic is now going to take itself out east to the Commanders. And another surprise player to make the roster, how about British Brooks, or as I've come to calling him, the British fullback. And it's getting more and more clear what British Brooks is going to do. I say more clear because it's not totally clear what British Brooks does, but he didn't warm up with the running backs. The running back warm-ups were just Joe Mixon and Dameon Pierce, Cam Akers, and Dare Agumbawale. The tight end warm-ups were Cade Stover, Dalton Schultz, Brevin Jordan, and British Brooks. Now, British Brooks is not a tight end, but tight ends warm up similar to fullbacks. So I've taken to calling British Brooks until he's officially designated a fullback, the something back, because he's not really a running back and he's not officially a fullback yet. So British Brooks, the something back, doesn't ring as well when I do my wrestler announcing voice, kind of like the British Bulldog, the British fullback. The British something back doesn't kind of hit as well. But British Brooks has a fantastic story. If you're unaware of his football career, he's a walk-on at North Carolina, played a long time for the Tar Heels. In 2022 was set to be a pretty important piece of the team, tore a knee ligament and wasn't even able to play, thought about not even playing football, not even playing college football anymore, and ultimately woke up one morning and texted Mac Brown, the head coach at North Carolina, and said, hey, I'm coming back for 2023. And then he had his best season as a collegiate football player in 2023. Not the most impressive 2023 season when you look at the landscape of college football, but good by his standards. He goes undrafted. The Texans make a somewhat significant undrafted free agent financial investment to him, and then he makes the team after a long training camp. I asked him, hey, did you take a minute? Did you take a moment to really reflect off of everything that you've been through, British Brooks, and now you're a member of the Houston Texans?
Especially coming out the season last year and the year before that, it was like dark times for me. So it was a point where I didn't want to play football no more. I didn't want to see a football. I didn't want to touch football. I didn't want to talk about football. And then out of nowhere, I wake up and I call my cousin. He trains me for a pro day. So I feel like, I told my high school kids, like, a coach shouldn't ask you if you love football. Like, he should be able to see that you love football. And I think that's one thing that the people around me, they don't got to ask to see if I love football. It's always been, in my heart to be a football player.
I just love the answer there. I mean, he talks about how 2022 and even kind of 2023, the dark times of the football career. And just like when he decided to play in 2023, he wakes up one morning, sends his cousin a text, and starts getting ready to be an NFL player. And now he is an NFL player for the Houston Texans. Remains to be seen if he's exactly going to be the fullback. Again, the something back until he's officially the fullback for this team, and how much they'll actually use him. Because D'Amico Ryans mentioned earlier this week, hey, sometimes using a fullback and you have players on the roster that can do that from other positions. Sometimes you don't need it based on the matchup. So British Brooks, Texan for now, and easy to root for that guy. So hopefully a Texan for a while. But if you don't have, if he's not the fullback full-time, and he just kind of is a floater role and maybe kind of a fullback, or he doesn't perform well in that new position at fullback, then it could be a shorter tenure there for British Brooks. But again, I think he's easy to root for, and he's got probably one of the coolest names on the team. And hopefully we get that official fullback designation so I can bring out the British fullback. Shout out to Howard Finkel and his British Bulldog. Dun, 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 dun. All right, the wrestling fans are like, yes. The non-wrestling fans are like, what are you doing? Okay. All right, appreciate you watching the video. If you have any comments about what we talked about, and let me know in the comments section. You like British Brooks at fullback? Did you wish Noah Brown made the team? Let me know in the comment section down below on your way down there. Throw me the thumbs up on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And of course, don't forget to visit my friends at Prize Picks. Have that fantastic offer for you where you play your first 5 and you get 50. Thanks to my friends at Prize Picks. Use my code STOOTS, STOOTS, at the link in the description down below. So check that out. Appreciate you watching the video. Hope you enjoyed it. I think I already said that. But I can't wait until we talk Texans again soon.